In my memories, I hold you, my Mozart, my one true love. Nonnberg, Austria, 1829. The floorboards of the house creaked with the patter of our footsteps as Mr. Novello and his wife walked into the parlor room of the house I had shared with my second husband, George von Nissen. While I was running a boarding house to make ends meet in 1797, I had met George, a Danish diplomat, as he was looking for lodgings while serving a post in Vienna, and I suppose, when he walked through the door, needing a place to stay, he brought me something I had lost in 1791. The hopes of a future, companionship. And with that, he gave me the beauty of stability for 10 years. He also became a father to my young sons, the carer of the family, and the rest is just history, as they say. For here we were, married with a stable home of our own from some time, till he passed away in March of 1826. Tea, Novello? And for you as well, Mary?
Certainly I shall have some, thank you.
None for me. Thank you, Madame Nissen.
He was a stable man, George Niklaus von Nissen, and a good one at that, while he had lived. He adored my sons, treated them as any father should have, with affection and care. At this point in time, both of the boys are successful and strapping young men, and given how hard I worked to get them a proper education, I couldn't be prouder of Karl and Wolfgang's achievements. I can hear them prattling on upstairs and playing their father's pianoforte as I pour tea for myself and Mr. Novello, though I had asked the boys to be a little more quiet with company present. I suppose the need for noise-making is in their blood. Karl and Wolfgang, though neither of my sons were George's by his own blood, he had treated them as if they were, and he'd been a suitable father in hindsight. In all truthfulness, however, I doubt anyone would believe my boys were George's at all, as they both looked too much like the late father, my first husband, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. My Mozart. How proud I know he'd be of our sons and their accomplishments, and I know he would encourage their natural gifts if he were still here. To the contrary of rumor and speculation, my Wolfgang loved his sons, even though he only had a short time with them. Out of the two boys, my little Karl had the most memories with his papa, and he often would reminisce about his father with me in his letters when he needed comfort during anniversary's date, December 5th, the day of his father's sudden passing.
Thank you. Now then, I suppose, if I may be so forward, Madame Nissen, could we speak on your former husband, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart?
I picked up my own cup of tea and sipped it gingerly. Holding it with both hands, I felt my left quaking with anxiety. I suppose the subject of Wolfgang is still delicate and troubling. I miss him, dearly and often, even after all these years.
I know it's a delicate subject, but my wife and I have been tracing his life, and we plan to visit Vienna once we've established some of the story here of his childhood home.
To be truthful, it's been 38 years since Wolfgan's passing. The anniversary has come and gone again past December. and the grief still feels fresh in my chest, as if it had happened yesterday. I can still remember how it all occurred. One moment he was there, happiest as he had ever been, clearer in mind than he had been in the days that followed the most terrible illness he'd ever faced, and then the next, he was gone. I recall vividly how strong he was, and how strong we both were in facing our respective illnesses at the time. That fateful year, in 1791, he relied on myself and my sister Sophia in his last days, and I relied on Aloysia to keep little Carl safe out of the way. Although I know he would sneak in the room, against my wishes, and sit with his father. He told me as much. Yes, it is the very subject of my dear beloved Wolfgang, whose very heart has filled the air with the melodies of love that he left lingering on my heart, and with the sound of his pianoforte in the air, I feel as Wolfgang's bright light never left my heart. It is the very subject of his life that brings me to the present moment, seated across from two beautiful souls who eagerly and kindly seek to learn from me about the man I loved, my Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. I confess, when I woke up today, I didn't quite expect to be greeted by the Novellos, knocking on my door and having the man, Novello, a kindly gentleman with spectacles and a beard, saying to me,
Oh, pardon us. My name is Vincent Novello, and this is my wife Mary. I'm terribly sorry to bother, madam, but I'm looking for Constanze Mozart. Would you happen to know where I might find her?
Indeed, you have found her, Novello. I am Constanze. But may I ask why you sought me? I had inquired. My curiosity was piqued.
I hope you will forgive me for being quite, forward, Madam Nissen, but was seeking an interview with you about the life of your husband, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, to get a clearer picture of what he was truly like while he lived.
Suffice to say, I was surprised when he told me just now that he was seeking to understand the short life of my former husband. 38 years since he's gone, and yet in that time I fought to keep Wolfgang's name alive. I have his music, and in my youth I'd given memorial concerts in his memory. I have his portraits, his drawings, his writings, every tool he used. I have the articles of clothing he wore, the wigs he used to don, and all the things that belonged to him, which we had in our flat in Vienna. Many of his letters from those days are sadly lost to me, for I couldn't find them when I left the home we shared in Vienna. Saving, of course, but a few love notes he wrote me, which I tenderly have preserved in my diaries, everything he was is gone and buried, except for what remains in my possession. You're right, Novello. The subject of my late husband is a delicate matter. He was my first love, my one true love. Though I adored Wolfgang as much as I loved my second husband, George, I dearly loved him, and he'd been a worthy husband before Providence called him away from me as well.
It must have taken such a magnitude of strength to endure such losses, Madame Nissen.
I feel my voice is lost to me for a mere moment. Although I hear her words, and they are kind in nature, I can feel the weight of Madame Novello's empathy, and I do receive it with much gratitude. For all I have endured, I suppose I had to claw and fight through it all. Yet for the first time in my 67 years of life. After all those years, all the gossip, the rumours, the lies, and the falsehoods spread from tale-bearers that plagued our courtship, and even the difficulties that led up to getting married to Wolfgang. Perhaps now, perhaps this moment, to tell of our love story, to speak of him to two individuals who genuinely are enthusiastic about my Mozart, I can finally have peace. However, our story, the story of my Mozart and I, was a different matter entirely, and it wasn't one without its trials. I replied at last, finding my voice.
We're all ears, Madame Nissen. Please, go on.
A smile crossed my lips. In a child's fairy tale, we often start with a prince and a princess. I softly laugh, but in reality, ours was a whirlwind of unexpected circumstances. I glanced down momentarily at the engraved portrait of my Mozart in the palm of my hand. His feathers are delicate, his eyes so soft, blue as the ocean. He looks so perfectly handsome as the day he first came to stay with my family, back in the May of 1781. 48 years ago. Lord. It seems impossible to believe that so long ago, this gentle and kind angel came to me, and of all the things I had endured up to that point, I never imagined I'd be granted a love quite as beautiful as his was for me. He was, and shall remain, my Wolfgang, my dearest dove. What a character he was! I miss him often, and cherish the days I spent loving him. And I'll always remember, though short-lived as it was, he was mine. And no matter what anyone tells you, I loved him, and he loved me. My dearest Mozart, my Mozart. Do you recall your rose amidst the thorns of the world we called home? Before the twilight of life, there is calm. My one true love, though you've gone above, in heaven's embrace so far away from me. Do you remember how it all began?